I got a quick question for you heading into this BC day-long weekend. Who is currently the best BC-born player in the National Hockey League? Duncan Keith has recently called it a career. Injuries have forced both Shea Weber and Brent Seabrook to the sidelines, so it kind of feels like there's been a bit of a transition when it comes to top players from this province. Jamie Benn and Brendan Gallagher used to be in this conversation, but that was 6 or 7 years ago. Seems like age and years of outstanding service have caught up with both of them. You can probably lump Carey Price into that mix, too, with the uncertainty around his future. Oh, and the fact he's a few weeks shy of his 35th birthday. And, of course, it shouldn't be too many years before Connor Bedard is the correct answer to this question for the better part of a decade, with his ball hockey buddy Ken Johnson not far behind, but neither is there yet. So, who holds the title of Best British Columbian currently in the National Hockey League? Is it Evander Kane, who seems to have been able to get his career back on track after a rough start to last season? Is it his Oiler teammate Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who has been a consistent workhorse for so many years in Edmonton? Sam Reinhart had a career-best 33-goal, 82-point season in Florida. You'd have to give him some consideration. Morgan Rielly still seems underappreciated in my mind. After all his years in the league, the West Van native and stalwart on the Leafs blue line, 72-point campaign the last full season prior to COVID, and just put up 68 points as a defenseman this past season. Ryan Johansson had a bit of a resurgence in Nashville, 26 goals, 63 points. Brideport Moody finished third in scoring behind Reinhart and Rielly among all BC boys last season. And that means Johansson outproduced a guy like Matt Barzal, who dipped to just 59 points on the island last year, but still deserves plenty of consideration when you contemplate the original question. And to be fair to the goalie group, with Carey Price fading into the sunset, let's throw Delta's Tristan Jarry a bone here. And that leaves us with 3 other candidates, all of whom play defense. Abbotsford's Devon Taves had himself a season, putting up 57 points and winning a Stanley Cup in Colorado. His young teammate Bowen Byram doesn't have the body of work yet at the big league level to truly merit a spot in this discussion, but it probably won't be long until he does. And last, but certainly not least, Aldergrove Shea Theodore does everything well and has emerged as a top-level defender in the league and has to be near the top of any kind of list of this kind. We may not be in the golden era of Joe Sakic, Paul Kariya, Mark Recchi, and, our good friend Ray Ferraro. But as we all pause for the long weekend to celebrate all that is good about living in this incredible province, let's take a moment to salute the current crop of BC boys leaving their mark in the National Hockey League.
That's the Pat Down, brought to you by the fine folks at Northlands Golf Course, who want to give you the very best public golf course in the Lower Mainland that you could possibly find. It's the crown jewel of golf. GolfNorthlands.com to book your tee time, and I can tell you it is looking fabulous these days. We both played it this week. You a couple of times. Yep. How did it treat you yesterday?
It was warm.
How did the scorecard treat you yesterday? Better than the previous day?
Not so hot. But the golf course is in incredible condition, and I think a lot of that is because we had so much rain earlier.
So much growing possibility, too.
It's just lush, and it's weathered this hot stretch and in fantastic shape. Greens were rolling nicely. If you get a chance this weekend, I highly recommend teeing it up at Northlands.
And then get a cold one on the patio after you're all done. Some shocking stuff that, we quickly flush at the end of a season, and that is, I would never have pegged Ryan Johansson above Matt Barzal last season, for sure. I think Morgan Rielly loses some luster, and hard to believe that you had to say that sentence, just because they're so gaga over the forwards in Toronto. They just grab all the air, all the oxygen. He's not forgotten. I'm in Toronto enough that he does get shine, but I think it would be bigger in maybe an atmosphere that didn't have one of the top 5 players in the league on the team.
It's just funny to me in this market now, the way that this city has embraced Quinn Hughes, and absolutely they should have, but Quinn Hughes had the same number of points as Morgan Rielly.
Right.
And we think of Quinn Hughes doing these things that have never been done in a Vancouver Canuck uniform by a defenseman. And as I mentioned, Morgan Rielly had a 72-point season a couple of years ago. Just kind of quietly, steadily goes about his business. But you're right. All the shine is on the guys up front.
I think if we power ranked it, I think Morgan Rielly has to be on the top.
Yeah.
But in terms of if you analyze skill set, I think that gap is closed significantly with Matt Barzal. But I just think, given where he's been at recently, I think Morgan Riley wins it pretty comfortably right now in terms of the best player from BC.
Sam Reinhart's kind of a forgotten man.
He is a little bit.
When you think about BC boys, and I think some of that's playing in Buffalo and then into Florida. But, I mean, that's a heck of a point-of-game guy down in Florida. Now, some changes there, obviously. Let's see if he can back that up. And I'm curious to see. I mean, they scored so many goals, and they were fun, but it didn't work for them. And so I wonder with Paul Maurice coming in if they tighten things up and maybe nobody gets to the kinds of point totals that they had individually last year.
Sam's a nice player. He surprised me this year. I thought he was without a doubt topping out as a second line player. I mean, those were first line numbers that he put up. So,
but it was that environment of just high octane offense.
Totally.
And I think everybody got involved there. Vander Kane, like for all of the off ice issues, he came back with a vengeance.
Well, that's
he
true.
found a place to play, and he looked the part of a guy that can be a dominant player on a lot of nights in the National Hockey League. I think, say what you will about Evander Kane on the ice, off the ice, whatever you may think, he's got to be near the top of this list.
Yeah, for sure he does.
Right now.
Again, talk about surprising performances. I mean, we know he's good, but for him to recapture the top end of his game like that was pretty amazing this season.